Wait. Tom cut his hair? Sorry, I'm still setting up over here, but I just saw that in the chat, and I'm like, Tom cut his hair? Welcome in, Tom. Miss you, homie. Who else is here? Let's see here. Saf! Good afternoon, sir. Good morning. Javar. Second by technicality. Wow. Tom, 10 months, dude. Let me turn down this racket over here. Yo, what's up, Heidi? Another game jam this weekend finished, huh, Saf? Very nice, very nice. Working on music for 2 crypto games at the moment and taking a break from mastering and mixing for 2 to 3 weeks. All right. A little shorter now, huh? Like how much shorter? How short is short? We talking like short or what? I really do need to find a little bit of time to stare at myself in the mirror for an inordinately long time so I can chop off my hair in a straight line. Or maybe I'll just shave it again. I haven't decided. Gotta do something though. Da, 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 da. Boom. We're talking about the importance of presets today. That's what we're going to learn about. Hopefully not the same old stuff we hear elsewhere. We have only one more stream until, that's the stream, until our community listening party and voting day, which happens on Wednesday. And we're going to see if we can get Whiskey in here. He holds the tie-breaking vote. He is currently the reigning champion of the community. And y'all have been playing with Space Dust for a month, so I'm stoked to see what you guys have been able to come up with there. Zamertz! What's up, homie? Shoulder length, huh? Yeah, I keep kind of going back and forth. So mine grows ridiculously fast. So the foot or whatever that I chopped off last time is back and it's all falling out. I don't know if I want to just like shave it or cut it or if I'm going to have it like, I don't know. Nico's trying to convince me to cut it to the same exact length as his, which is getting longer. He's grown it out for the 3rd time now. We just can't make up our minds over here. Saf says, I need to shave off all my hair because it's a lot of work to keep dyeing my hair all the different colors. It's a lot of work. Plus it ruins a lot of shirts. Hey man, I like tie-dyes. Cut your own hair since 2016. Yeah. Someone did cut my hair. A friend cut my hair like 6-7 years ago. The last person to cut my hair before that was a friend, and she cut off probably, I don't know, maybe like a foot more than I was expecting, and I was like, gosh, that's not really cool. And I've basically cut my own hair ever since, which is why it's either really long or shaved for the most part. Ooh. So Tom was explaining the concept of the crypto games. It's It's pretty new, but basically game currency becomes actual crypto coins that you can trade for more popular coins. Yep, we got one more stream, Tvar, because today I think I got this right in my head. Yeah, okay. So today's the last day of the month, so people got a little bit more time to get wrapped up. Whiskey. Oh, Heidi got a haircut too. Man, everyone's getting haircuts. It's like spring cleaning time or something. Wow, and just like that, the sun comes out. Say spring. It's like, whoa. Blackberry Jam Studios. What's up, homie? It is a gorgeous day. Yeah, I wish I could split my day in half today and spend half of it outside working. That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Ooh, another entry over the weekend, huh, Merits? What's up, Ben? You remember me with shorter hair, huh, Tom? Interesting, Tom. I'm just reading your thread on the crypto games. What kind of stuff you making for them? Out of curiosity. BlackBerry's got a plan. Shave it all off March 1st and August 1st. There you go. I like that, Tom. The art and the music from the game can be sold. I like that. Medieval style music. Okay. 8 music for the other. Cool. Nice. So where did we leave off? We left off with sampling last week. Where'd my classroom go? Where's my classroom? Oh, did I forget to? Oh man, I forgot to post. I forgot to copy the text over. So I'll do that today. Because the formatting doesn't copy over. I have to kind of do it line by line. So today we're talking the wide world of presets and samples, and not presets and samples necessarily in the sense that we're talking like third-party stuff, like stuff that other people are creating. The stuff that you create yourself for yourself is just as important, if not way more important. And until you start going down that path, you're kind of constantly recreating the wheel and lots of other things that just isn't quite as necessary. And we oftentimes get stuck in these routines that we don't really need to. Let me just kill this background noise here. All right. Hair was always just past my ears. Yeah, it's like, I don't even know where it is. It's like mid back. It's like the middle of my back now, I guess. With a baseball hat, right? Right. Yeah, dude, Tom. Okay, so in your absence, since you've been reacclimating to the new sleep schedule over there, we've made a couple of changes. I'm starting a little bit late on some days while I'm like running from meetings or whatever still, and I haven't been able to accept or provide lessons for a great many people. So we're we're kind of systematizing some stuff over here. We're doing some learning on Mondays. Right now we're going through the first term of a 16-week general sound design course in hopes of kind of filling in all the missing gaps with terminology and understanding of theories and tools and stuff like that, as well as best practices and basic workflows and functions, sound types, and how to build them all with intention. So it's no longer stumbling into things. It's actually knowing exactly what you want to do and then knowing what things to reach for and what order of operations to do those things, so you can get back to discovery and play as quickly as possible, and train our ears at the same time, but most importantly, just kind of understand how to create a language, a shared language, very quickly, so you can communicate around these things with yourself and other people. And it's all kind of built up around the idea of hacking our earliest neural pathways, colors, shapes, temperatures, basic emotions, textures, that type of thing. And allowing ourselves to plug all of our sound terminology into kind of everyday things that we can correlate to easily. And we go through everything in the order in which it happened in history. So we will start with a certain type of synthesis and sampling, and we will go through the natural evolution and the introduction of all the different types of synthesis and sampling and whatnot through the years. So, and then there's another 16-week course after that for the second term. But by that point, there should be some really fun challenges happening in the community and stuff. So anyway, that's what Mondays have become. Wednesdays are mostly production oriented, where I am just working on new releases and answering questions. And then Fridays are still Feedback Fridays. So that's what we're doing here. All right, so like I was saying, a lot of people tend to think about presets and samples as these things that you go out and you purchase or download or something, stuff that other people do. But pretty much all of the tools that we're working with in our DAWs allow us to save a preset. And we should. I'm a big believer in doing it again and again and again until you build up the muscle memory and then let go of it, right? Like that's the whole point of mastering something. So I have this, it's kind of a lame saying, I guess, or I don't know, maybe I just feel like that because I've said it for so many years, but how do you know if you actually know something if you can't like teach it or show it or do it again and again without really thinking about it? You know what I mean? So once you reach that point, there's no reason to continue to prove it to yourself. You're just sucking up time, basically, and you're putting yourself into a sequence. And once you get a certain number of steps into a sequence, it's hard to get out of it. You're now trying to approach something from within this sequence, from within this routine. And what we would like to do is approach each sound or piece of music that we're going to work on fresh, right? We want to have some initial spark of inspiration. There's some level of intention about what you're going to do. Even if that intention is, I'm going to work freely today. Right. So you kind of identify what your intention is, and then you work toward the shape of that idea first, and then you are left to play with the timbre. And the quickest way to get there is by using your presets. Right. And I'm not talking about just the kind of presets that we were talking the last couple of sessions, like saving a pluck and saving a pad, right, shape, and then dialing in the timbre, but also just those EQs that you're constantly putting on everything, you can build presets for those. And you can build presets for your compressors and for your distortion plugins. And blah, 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 blah. You can also create presets for channel strips, right? In other words, you could load up a synth with a sound that you've developed plus an array of effects and some routing choices or something. And then you can just load that up in any project you want. And of course, you can make templates, right? And start from a template. And all of these things, they just shave time. They just shave time off so you can focus more on the creative process of it all. And I think potentially the more important part of it is just the level of ownership that you feel, the level of control that you feel, and the confidence that's gained in the fact that you now know that you can create all of these little things and use them in various different scenarios. And the more you do that, the better you understand what you're doing and how to accomplish these things. So you're just using more of the tools put in front of you. That is the concept here. Greetings from sunny Maryland. It is sunny in Portland as well, Paul. Welcome in. Out of focus. Out of focus? I could zoom in. Better. Probably even better still. I forget. I have such a big screen, and I bet little words are just impossible to read there. Hey, what's up, Nate? How you doing, homie? Another synthwave track. Nice to hear it, Nate. Hope you're doing well, homie. You feeling better? Excellent. Yeah, you guys got to remind me if my text is too small. We can go up a little bit more. Might be too big. All right. Lots and lots of different reasons why samples become important as well. As you can imagine, if you have 100 different sound packs and you've got snares scattered across half of them, it's kind of hard to find the ones that you want. So eventually we get kind of clever and we start building these folders that are kind of organized with our favorite sounds in them or whatever. But to start doing that with our own sounds is something that a lot of people just don't do. They leave them sitting in projects. So they make a sound and they leave it in that project and they never return to it. Sometimes I even watch people try to recreate a sound that they had in another project, and they'll open up the other project and they'll start playing with that sound and then try and go over and recreate it in another project and get frustrated. And but it's so much simpler than that, right? Just solo it, bounce it, boom, you got a sample. And then while you're in there doing that work, save all those different things as presets. So now you can open up that channel strip in a different project, or you can open up that synth preset in a different project, or that LFO preset within the next project, right? So even within the synth itself, even within the synth preset, there are sub presets that you can build, like envelope shapes and LFO shapes, and yeah, just so many different things that we can save. So pretty much everywhere we can load something is a place where we can save something these days. And just starting to get into that mindset, and it starts to liberate the creative process, but it also just kind of unshackles the brain a bit. And it can be rather profound what kind of things start to creep up in your brain, like the things that you're able to do when you're reclaiming that time and bandwidth. I freaking love the Gazelle. Liquid Phase, welcome in, and thank you so much for the sub. 5 months. Good to have you here, homie. Can we switch to wingdings? It also can help you select the right tools for the job, right? Because let's say you have a couple of synths that you use a lot, and in one of them, the only thing that you can save is a preset. And in the other one, you can save a preset, but you can also save envelope shapes and LFO shapes and noise profiles, right? And just lots of really good stuff. You can save those things. Arpeggiator sequences, that type of stuff. I would start to err toward the side, or kind of lean more toward the one that you can save a bunch of stuff in. It just makes more sense because you can't use all of your ideas all of the time. And when you do want to refer to something, if you know where it is, then you can actually do something with it instead of spending the rest of your day chasing your own tail trying to find that thing. You know what I mean? Anyway, I think you guys get it. And then just the idea of using presets and samples in your own work and getting over the labels of presets and samples, right? The more of them you make, the more, I think, the more easily you should find peace in using other people's presets and samples if that's ever bothered you before. There's part of a lot of people that is kind of bothered by the idea of using samples or presets because they feel like it's a shortcut or it's cheating or it's not their sound entirely, so it doesn't matter as much or whatever we want to assign to it. But the fact is that if you're creating and you're creating freely, you should be not just able, but like encouraged to use whatever is at your disposal to arrive at the timbre and like the liveliness in your sounds that you really want, right? It's about chasing like this end goal. So starting with a preset and making it yours, or just using an outright preset, in my mind, there's really not a lot of difference there because it's about what you're trying to make, right? If you're trying to make something really unique, then you're going to make it unique. There's no doubt about that. There's a million different ways you can make a sound unique. But getting the right ingredient in place is just so important. So kind of shifting the mindset of thinking about these as sounds versus thinking about them as ingredients, right? And what are presets? So I'm going to go down the first little analogy rabbit hole of the day here, and it's going to be a food analogy. And we're just going to talk through the many presets that we use in the kitchen for just a few minutes, just to help us acclimate our expectations. Okay? How many of you, when you want to eat spaghetti after a long day's work, bust out the semolina and your cage-free eggs and your dusting your table and you start making your pasta, right? And you start peeling those tomatoes, which, you got to blanch them and peel them, shock them. And then you got to start your sauce, right? Or how many of you open up the pantry or cupboard or drawer or wherever you keep your dry pasta and you pull out the pack of spaghetti noodles and then you heat up your water and then you think to yourself every time you make it, I wish it was a little bit faster to boil a big pot of water like this, right? Like we're always looking for ways to kind of slim down and kind of make it more convenient for ourselves. There's lots of stuff we want to do or have to do every single day, right? And that tomato sauce, it's pretty easy to open up a jar and maybe you're going to like cook up some sausage and some garlic and onion and stuff to like make it really interesting, right? And then you're going to pour in the sauce and it just makes it easier, right? Or maybe you do make it from scratch and you start opening up your can of like tomato paste and you know what I mean? Like there's just so many of these shortcuts. Those are all presets. They're all something that was brought to a point and now we're going to work from that point and move forward with it. Right. And we're all going to make something different with each one of those things. You know what I mean? Like how many of you have garlic salt in the cupboard right now? It's just a combination of salt and garlic powder, right? Or granulated garlic, one of the two, right? But you buy it because it's a preset. You don't have to shake two things. You shake one thing. So we get it, and we're very comfortable with it on one level. But as soon as we start moving into sound, then we're not, right? You woke up this morning and you put on a shirt, which is a preset, right? When you stop and think about it, right? These were a bunch of fibers and a bunch of hardworking people at many different stages in many different places turned those fibers into a shirt. One that had the graphic on it that you like, and you wear it every Monday or whatever. So we use presets constantly. And we should be using them here as well. And samples, you better believe we should be using them, right? What is better than cloning a great idea? Right? 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 If you could take the perfect fried egg, right? I'm talking like the kind of egg that you get with a piping hot plate of kra pao in Thailand, and you just blow on it and the thing just like the yolk just like runs over everything like it's water, and yet the edges are like super, super crispy, right? Like you make that perfect egg. Tell me you wouldn't clone it and put it on every single plate of kra pao for the rest of your life. It's the perfect one, right? We like our coffee just the right way. So we grind it at the same setting. We cook it for the same amount of time. We drink it out of the same mug. We are such creatures of habit, and presets and samples are exactly that. So any kind of negativity or shade thrown at presets and samples is really, it becomes tricky. It becomes tricky because you got to ask yourself at some point, like, why is there negativity about this for me right now? Like, why am I feeling that? Like, people say it for a lot of different reasons, but if it's hindering you, then just kick it to the curb and start having fun. And then working with audio versus MIDI. Like, there are absolutely times where you want to work with audio, and there are absolutely times when you want to be working with just pure synthesis. And we can dip into all of that. And before we start getting into some preset exercises here in just a moment, talking about customizing and working from scratch and kind of building hybrid workflows there to make stuff really, really fast and creative, I just want to talk really quickly about this concept of a bad sample. We live in an age of a million sounds. Like, it's not hard to fathom that any one of us, if we were to actually sit down and tally up sounds on one of our drives, it would total 1 million or more or less. It really doesn't even matter. The point is that it's this overwhelming amount of sounds, right? And part of how we get there is we're constantly chasing shiny. And part of how we end up getting there is we have these growing expectations and standards, right? So in other words, we're constantly adding more because the more talented we become, the greater the expectations and standards become, and then therefore we stop using the older sounds. We've deemed them bad, or something that you made months ago is bad compared to what you're using now. It's like we're constantly just moving forward. But there's this very simple truth about sound, and that is that, and this is going to be another food analogy, that is that there are only so many types of sounds. There's only so many types of mother sauces. You know what I mean? Tomato sauce, the Espanol sauce. And you've got a brown sauce, right? And you've got a cream sauce, a velouté or something, right? And you've got these very, very kind of iconic or monolithic type of things, right? They stand on their own, and you can derive thousands and thousands of byproducts or ideas from them, right? Same exact kind of thing with the sample, right? Once you know how to create the sound that you want from a sound, then you really only need that sound to make all of these other sounds. So kind of crushing this idea that there is such a thing as a bad sample. There are sounds that suck compared to other sounds. 9 out of 10 times, we could find a use for them. Our goal should really just be stop collecting the stuff that you don't need and figure out how it is being made, and instead acquire the stuff that really inspires you, right? And then start to dissect exactly what's happening there, right? And how you're using that sound can absolutely inform the level of inspiration that you can find in a sound, right? Or kind of feel in a sound. There are certain types of shapes and sounds that I like to use as triggers or modulators more than I do enjoy hearing them, right? So there are certain types of things that I will use to control other things rather than allow myself to hear those things. And it's just becoming aware of what those different shapes and characteristics can actually equate to in your workflows. So we're going to take a look at those things today. The other thing we're going to talk about is creating, saving, and version control. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are constantly struggling with file management, and this can help with that because presets are lightweight. They don't take up a lot of space. You don't feel bad deleting one or creating a couple more once you get in the routine of it. And then, like I just said, proper file management, file sharing, and backups, audio formats, and impact on sound design. But this is from like a 12,000 foot up kind of perspective. We're not getting into the nitty gritty of the technicalities of that stuff for like another, I forget what it is, couple of weeks. And then there's just going to be some general hands-on time for you guys for the next week, and just kind of challenge you to actually do a little bit of reading about other people's thoughts on sampling and creating sounds through synthesis, simply so you can start to gain insight into other people's perspectives about creating sound. And I think that this is a really good time while your mind is being forced to be a bit more plastic in how it's thinking about the types of sounds that we use day to day, and then how we start to build our own library of sounds, that type of thing. When you're hearing other people's personal thoughts and opinions about certain aspects, it can shake some stuff loose and kind of help you find direction and inspiration. So I'm just going to check and see if there are a bunch of questions here before we actually dig in. Oh, Nate's got one. He says, here's a question. What are your thoughts about Drum Monkey and MIDI chord packs, etc.? Do you like the products themselves, but not how they're advertised to take easy roads? I don't have a problem with any of it. I have never found myself sitting here judging how other people make things. I really don't enjoy when people sit there and judge me and how I make things. I feel that generally speaking, it says more about them than what I'm working on in any point in time. And therefore, I feel that if I was to be harshing on what inspires other people or what is fun for other people, it says a lot more about me than what they're doing, because they're over there having fun and they're over there creating. So I do not believe anyone just comes into this world knowing all of this stuff. And I also believe that you don't need to know everything to make really good stuff. And you certainly don't need to know everything to have fun. And in my opinion, creating the kind of stuff you want to and having fun are some of the most important parts of all of this. For the great large majority of people, I feel like they should be priorities because everything else kind of falls into place. So MIDI chord packs, I'm fine with. I mean, I've put out MIDI packs. And I really don't care how stuff is advertised as long as it's not predatory, fraudulent, or misleading. And I'm also not a big fan of people that hate on other companies or products in their ads. That's just my thing. But anyway, if someone is not preying upon someone or misleading them in their advertising or something like that, I mean, I would hope that people are buying, you know, like the MIDI chord packs and stuff because they don't know theory and they want to make music. Awesome. Because if they knew more about their DAW, they would be able to do those things without any of those things, right? If they knew 2 or 3 more clicks in their piano roll, they'd be able to build all of that stuff themselves and they wouldn't need to buy those things. And eventually they'll get to that point if that's the road they want to go down. You know what I mean? So I see it as to each their own. Liquid Phase is asking or saying, OhmLab, you know, I think this is a good analogy, but having eaten real handmade pasta from someone who hailed from Parma, Italy, no store-bought pasta is the same. Yeah, exactly. No, there are reasons to do it all yourself, especially if you have truly like created something special. But it takes a while to get there, right? And you have to be taught, like someone first needs to show you this idea of making pasta. And then it might take you years to hone your craft, right? To make it something so special that someone years later is talking about it in a chat room, right? That type of thing. It just takes some time. But anyway, I like correlating a lot of this stuff to everyday things that we've already acclimated to, because it helps us break down the walls that we kind of construct around these things. And a lot of it comes down to fear. A lot of it just comes down to, what if I'm not good enough? What if people don't like my stuff? What if my stuff sucks? What if I can't make something good again? What if I can't make anything good at all? I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that. So anything to help someone past that is awesome, right? All right, cool. So let's dive into some of this stuff. This whole starting with a preset and customizing, I think is something that is a really good place for most people to start with, right? Because there's always going to be a big group of us who, when we arrive at a tool, we're going to look at it and we're going to be like, oh, okay, so what do they have to pick from here? Right? It's like this initial moment of almost like shock, and then that can persist for the entirety of your lifetime with that tool if you do not take the time to break out of that. Right? So the very first step of that is to start tweaking parameters, even if you don't know what those parameters even mean at first, because it's going to help you realize that you're not going to break anything. You just load that preset again. If you get too far away from shore and you're starting to drown and things are not going well, you just start again, and nothing bad is ever going to happen. So that's what we're going to do first, is just kind of take a look at a few key areas in which you can make quick tweaks to in pretty much any kind of synth preset, and then start saving those as your own iterations of those things. And the more times you do that, the more kind of security and confidence you feel in all of it. But you're also starting to do a lot of mental mapping, right? You're starting to really solidify what we were talking about for the first few weeks, right? What these different shapes are and what the different timbres imply and that type of thing. So without further ado, let's pull up a tool. I think I might start in Serum for each one of these, knowing just how many of you have Serum. And then if you guys have requests for a synth in any one of these sessions that we're doing, y'all just say the word. I like this comment from Liquid Phase. 99.9% of the public will not recognize a sample used in more than one track. 0.01% of producers notice, and 0.001% of producers care and make it an ego thing. Yeah, and they're the ones that type something online, which starts a conversation, and then people get going. Yeah. Okay, so Zamertz is actually pretty picky from the outright. He says, I don't like packs as they take up a lot of space. I prefer to select one or two than have a whole pack to sift through and mostly never use. Yeah, okay. So for Zamertz, it's definitely about quality and inspiration over quantity. Paul says, the sample war is nothing new. Schubert totally ripped Beethoven's cellos. Lost in the sauce. Tom is saying, I'd love to have some homework today as per request of Purple. Danger Seth, welcome in, dude. I'm a little behind on the chat, still catching up here. Wasn't there a synth nerd who made music? Ba-dum-psh. Really good comments in here today. Liquid Face says, totally hence my use of MIDI packs while I still take lessons. Gotta love little wins while not being happy with the status quo. Yeah, yeah. Nate, take care, dude. Alex is saying, I recently got into learning how to make melodies. Yeah, you know, this stuff is just stuff that's going to happen over time, and you're going to fall into the stuff that you really enjoy over time by just kind of slowly experimenting with all of it. Just do it in the pace that feels right. Otherwise, you just stress yourself out and stop having fun. Totally. Just do it and eat fresh, says Tom. That's awesome. Oh. Heidi said, I had a book about Louis Pasteur when I was a kid called Believing in Yourself that kind of never meant anything to me until the past many years. Yeah, yeah, but every lawyer on YouTube thinks they recognize the sample as their clients. Yeah. Yep. Right there, Andremia. Everyone is using Kick 507 from the unnamed sound pack from unknown company on YouTube. Exactly. I ripped this snare off 12 years ago. I've been using it ever since. It's great. Where'd you get it? I have no idea. All right, so let's talk about the various ways in which you can use other people's presets to start getting acclimated to the idea of building your own and kind of finding your way through synthesis. Because part of it has to be exploration. If you don't find stuff on your own, if you don't have those discovery moments, then you're not going to be enthralled. You're not going to be immersed in the process the same way that you would be if it was just someone pointing to something or reading a manual and saying, turn knob A. You know what I mean? When you have those moments where you don't just like turn a knob, but you turn a knob, it does something and it makes sense. It's this really important, meaningful moment. So reverse engineering and stuff like that is like super important. I'm going to open up some of my sounds over here. Let's just start with the very first one here. Pretty simple sound. So you might notice that all of the changes that are happening with this particular sound are actually fairly subtle. And if you look really closely, when you turn some knobs, you can see certain things move and change. Like this one, when I turn this timbre, it's actually changing the shape of this waveform in here. And you'll see that all over the place inside of well-programmed synth presets. And when you've got macros, you know that you can take advantage of this wiring that someone else put together, right? So one of the easiest things to do to make a sound your own when working with other people's presets is actually swapping out the wavetable or the waveform, right? This one's all complex. What if we just grab another one that's equally complex but totally random? Oh, that's actually a pretty nice sound. Let's change this one too. Okay, the next thing that you can swap out easily and still have something interesting is a filter. Okay, and as long as you understand the difference between a high pass, a low pass, and a band pass, you can kind of make your way through the rest. So let's just swap out a filter type. This one right here is a multi. Let's change it into something really weird, like a sample and hold maybe. Or maybe a flange of some kind. Interesting. Anyway, even I get caught up in it. So switching out the what's loaded into the oscillator, what's loaded into the filter. If it has noise, you can swap out what's loaded into the noise. The other thing you can do is change modulation assignments. Let's pop into a different sound. We'll just next in this one. We're going to do the same exact thing that we did in the last one. We're going to swap out a couple of these, and we'll do them fairly randomly. So you can get like these kind of subtle variations. You can also get really, really drastic variations. Let's just go in here and find a really good example for something drastic. Okay, so like this morning air, this one's pretty gentle here. There's lots of good things about this. What if we went in a very different direction? I'm going to change this filter as well. Let's go in the opposite direction. Let's do a high pass instead of a low pass. And this one's got some noise. Let's swap out that noise so it's just different. Let's do some kind of field recording or something. So you can actually, you know, without getting like crazy with processing and stuff like that, you can do quite a bit with bringing something toward your own your own feel by making just a couple of like significant, but not completely drastic changes, and it'll change the tonality of the whole thing. You're still maintaining the same shape and all of the same kind of modulation assignments. So there's continuity in the way that the sound is delivered, and there's continuity in the way like the formation of the sound. You're just focusing on timbre, right? So when you kind of compartmentalize the parts of the sound, or the process of creating that sound, it allows you to kind of target certain things and get a little bit more intentional about what part of the sound might change when you start tweaking it, right? And yet you still also retain a whole lot of opportunity for discovery in that process, right? Selecting things at random or going in a very opposite direction with the type of waveform that you're putting in or the style of filter that you're putting in or something like that. And of course, then there's also pitch, right? Like things that are rather precise in their shape are usually put up higher, right? We're talking like plucks, so they articulate quickly, versus long form pads or whatever. Basses, right? The nice smooth basses, those can be way down. What if you bring those way up and turn them into a pluck, right? What if you take those high-end plucks? What if you drop them a couple of octaves and just open up the envelope just a little bit, so you've got a sustained note there? What do those types of changes result in, right, from one sound to the next? And the more often you do that, the more comfortable you're going to become making changes to wavetables, making changes to filters, making changes to modulation depth, or pitch. And then it just leads to the very next thing, right? As soon as you're comfortable with swapping out a filter type, you're going to become more comfortable with modulating the parameters on that filter, because you're starting to wrap your mind around the cause and effect, the relationship of each one of these different parameters or components and how they're working in tandem with other things. Okay, so it all sounds basic, right? But actually going through the motions of doing this stuff is what does the good stuff for you, right? So you got to really walk the walk and actually go through this process a whole bunch of times, until you start to realize what you've been missing in that. Now, this goes both ways. This goes for people that are brand new to synthesis and they've always been afraid to start doing their own thing because they don't know where to start. They don't know what they're doing yet, which is totally fine. And it is also as equally applicable to those who, like, never, out of some sort of moral stance or something, never touch presets, because they just don't, for whatever reason. It's applicable to these folks as well, okay? Because there's a lot of really good programming out there by other people, and we can be inspired by a lot of it. We just have to kind of allow ourselves to be. Anyway, off of that, the next thing that we can do in regards to just talking about the ins and outs of presets is building your own. And like we were talking about last week and the week before, if you start from a point of nothing and you take something just to a certain point and then save it, and now you're starting from a source sound or a source shape the next time that you work. It's not always about taking a sound all the way to the finish line, all the way to its maximum potential, because that's a very specific point in which to land with your sound. It's going to serve a certain kind of purpose. It's going to be less applicable to the large majority of projects that you will ever work on. But if you were to rewind that process and stop partway through it, that is a really good point to save a preset, because now what you're doing is you're starting to build up a personal inventory of those basic ingredients, those basic things that you do a lot of, right? We talked in a couple of different sessions about, like, okay, let's make a pluck, let's make a pad, right? And just kind of talking about these shapes. Well, let's take it one step further. So it's not just the shape. Let's actually make a type of sound that we would actually use, right? Like a lot. How about a bass? How about a sawtooth bass? So we're going to come over here And I'm going to take something that's kind of like a sawtooth. Maybe it is a sawtooth. And I'm going to make a pluck. And in fact, I'm actually going to use the same envelope to shape it both with amplitude and filter. That's just what I'm going to do. I'm just making that choice. Bring this down here. And I'm not even going to open it up 100%. Okay, and I said base. So instead of making it harder on myself and moving a couple of inches to the left, I'm going to drop this an octave. This is becoming a more relevant preset. I like maybe just a little bit more resonance in this for just a tiny bit more funk, but I don't want it there the entire time. So I'm going to use the same envelope again. I'm going to put it on the resonance. I'm just going to put just a tiny little accent on this. Okay, now that is starting to sound a bit more crispy, a little more worthy. I'm going to add just a little bit of drive, and I'm going to open up the fat just a little bit, which is just going to kind of extend the reach into that cutoff range. Okay, so now it's sounding a bit more full. My camera focus? Oh no, you mean like on my face? Here, let's give it the old one too. Let me just... How me looking now? All right, so this is becoming a bit more of an interesting sound. And this is absolutely something that I would do many times. This might be a good place to stop. So I'm just going to come up here and I'm going to save a preset. And we're going to put this into learning. And I'm going to say this is a basic saw bass. And I'm also going to put PL at the front of it, which I just use for pluck. Okay, so here's a pluck style. Okay, we could also say bass. Oops, BA. And then we could say pluck here. Either way, what I've done is I've just kind of saved a couple of characters to make this all fit within the display window of the preset name field up here, I guess. So this is most likely how we would want to organize something like this, right? Because over the years, we're going to build up a lot of presets and we want to find them quickly. And when I'm looking for this particular preset, I'm probably going to be looking for a bass. So categorizing it as bass is a really good idea. And then just including the word pluck in there is a really good thing, right? Because now we're not going to select it if we're looking for a sustained bass. All right, so so now we've got this basic saw pluck. So now every single time I'm going to start with a basic saw pluck, I'm just going to open up this patch right here, and the very first thing I'm going to start doing is customizing it, right? I'm going to maybe I'll come in here and I'll just get rid of these other waveforms, and maybe I'll just come in here and crossfade between the sine wave and the sawtooth and come out here. So now I've got this wave table that can morph. And so if I wanted to, I could actually kind of move this toward a sine wave and use that same envelope and push it up and around over towards that sawtooth. So now this is the same shape. Everything is still the same. And now I've got a skinny bass, right? Something that isn't so in your face and deeply rooted. Little more stable and interesting down another octave. So I'm I'm actually going to dip this a little bit further toward the sine wave. Okay, so I like that. So I might actually even save this one as a second one, as a second bass. So we're just going to call this 2. Okay, what's another type of bass that we might want to play with? Well, we would probably want to play with maybe a triangle. So we're just going to load this up, and we're going to remove all modulators here, and we're going to find our triangle. There it is. All right, so this one's pretty nice, but I also want some grit in it if I'm going to have this type of sound. So I think what I'll do is maybe I'll just turn on the sawtooth. I'm just going to keep the level all the way down, and I'll turn on FM over here and just add just a little bit of sizzle from that sawtooth. I like that. Okay, so this is now going to be Hey, what's up, Will? I probably will have some time for that. The whole screen? The whole screen? Really? Okay, so this one I'm going to save, and we're just going to call this triangle. And it's a pluck. Going back to 1. Right, see where this is going? So once I've made this type of bass a whole bunch of times, I just don't want to do it anymore, right? All right, not the initial starting point, right? So now I can, while I'm working on a song, I can put a little MIDI clip in my arrangement window, right? Set to the BPM and the key of the song that I'm working on. And now I can start auditioning these different basses, these basic basses, right? And then when I find the kind of timbre and attitude that I'm looking for out of just those few handfuls of sounds, then I can start crafting it in this direction that's more, you know, distinct, characteristic, like traits of a certain genre or subgenre, right? And then when we get part of the way there, right, we've now pushed it into the genre, but it's not completely defined as its own, like, truly unique character yet. That's the next really great place to create a preset. So let's just take a look at what that might be. And we'll use this one as an example. Okay, so for something like this, I might actually use just a little bit of pitch modulation, and I might go up just a little bit. Right, it causes this kind of like phase kind of effect, but we're still in a unison voice. I'm going to go over here. Actually, I'm going to add a sub first. Okay, so this would be... All right, so I've got a sub going in here now, and that kind of messes all this up with that kind of phase effect with the fine-tune modulation there. I'm going to add a little bit of saturation to this, maybe just a stomp box. And maybe this one... maybe this one also gets just a little bit of EQ. I'm just making some arbitrary changes here. Not completely, but just to keep the show going. Okay, so maybe this is a good stopping point. we haven't added any like kind of, you know, specific type of compression, shaping, or anything like that, right? So maybe this is now feeling I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of smooth bass house kind of thing. So we're just going to open this up. And we're just going to give it a new name, bass house triangle pluck. Right. And so now, as we go to finish this sound, you know, we'll toss in probably some compression and whatnot and push this thing over the finish line in style. And maybe just a small amount of delay in here. All right, so maybe this is your final sound, and we've got an actual name on this one now, like shimmy shake. For whatever reason, we've finally reached our final sound, right? So now, when you're going back and you're making your next track that you feel like a triangle pluck kind of bass house style type sound would work, that is when you open up your presets and you navigate. Where did I put that? Learning, that's where I put it. You navigate to the one that was most of the way there, right? And you start making your next one. So maybe this one is actually going to be much harsher. It's going to have more distortion in it. Right? You can quickly get to that point. It may only take you a matter of seconds if you're really familiar with your sound and you have a really good idea of where you want to go, right? It might only take you a couple of minutes. But the odds of you getting there quickly and easily, if you have to restart the sound entirely from scratch, right? Maintaining that focus and remembering where you wanted to go with it and not getting distracted or losing your train of thought or whatever on the way there, right? Just give yourself the opportunity by creating some of these presets. And then the more times you do this, the easier this becomes, the less of a burden it becomes. And when you're doing it just for your own personal use, you can make these so quick and easy, right? As you start building up your skills, then you can start tagging things with attributes, right? Like distorted or monophonic or polyphonic or sequenced or whatever. So as you're searching for them, you can find more specific things. But this is kind of the absolute basic exercise of presets, right? Whether you're starting with someone else's sounds and starting to know like where to tweak them and how much to tweak them to start like nudging them in the direction of your style and your character, or starting from scratch and just remembering to save along the way at these kind of ideal version points. So then they're really useful to you going forward, right? I'm just going to scroll up in chat really quick and see what people are asking over here. Yeah, you know, Tom, you've brought this up before, audio forensics, and Paul has as well. Exactly. Exactly. Javar says, I'm finally starting to have some of those, oh, I want to change this knob to get what I want rather than just randomly trying everything. Isn't that a good feeling? It feels like stuff is becoming possible and you're actually starting to own the stuff that you've always wanted to. It's so it's so good. It's so inspiring to get to these points. Happy Lunar New Year, Liquid Phase. Tom, take care, buddy. ARP 2600 preset. Yeah, okay, so Paul says, and this will be the next step for us. I'll take a preset, find 1 to 3 parameters that twiddle nicely, then set modulators on them. Also, modulators don't need to be waveform continuous. Sequencing modulation takes it to the next level. The next thing I want to show you guys is how to build utility presets. So this is a sound preset, right? Obviously, we're making a bass synth here, right? But there are so many little things here that we need to tune into really quick. Because there's a lot of other stuff that we could be saving to speed up this entire process for us. And, you know, correlating this back to like things in the kitchen, right? You wouldn't pick up this giant piece of salt and grind it every single time you needed to add a pinch of salt to something, right? You'd probably get like smaller pieces and grind them in a little grinder, or maybe even just shake it or something, right? So we're going to talk envelopes and LFOs and noise and stuff next. And especially with LFOs, this is where we start to unlock and kind of quickly push aside the whole sterility thing that we hear a lot about in regards to computer music or preset synthesis. We hear all these like kind of negative terms that people use in regards to things not having like a moving life force within them with many real world instruments. So that's kind of this next step here. I just want to catch up on this chat here. Liquid Phase says, I was able to write a song using presets. Then when it was fully formed, I switched out the elements with customized ones. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's all the placeholder content and then going in and filling out the stuff that you want. It's kind of the entire basis of the engine and the workflow that Audio Design Desk is built around as well. It's like, just get the shape, get the idea out. Now let's work on the timbre. Let's start swapping these sounds out, this placeholder material out with stuff, right? Stuff that we actually want. Making the songwriting process go faster is priceless for someone like me who gets too caught into perfectionism. And Liquid Phase, not just that, it doesn't just help you combat against the perfectionism, but it's also like the thing that I was just talking about, like the continuity of thought and inspiration. When you have to slow down and figure something out, that idea just disappeared. You know, you had a really great idea and you cannot for the life of you ever remember what that idea was because you had to stop and try and remember how to get your LFO to operate in a rate of triplets instead of dotted quarter notes. You know what I mean? It's like these tiny little things that just derail us and then we can't get back, right? It's just, oh, it's so tough. So just getting the stuff out there is really good. Make a wavetable that morphs between presets. We can actually do that. We can actually do that in some tools. Oh, Javar, you've got one in feedback. Cool. Nice. We will hit these two in just a moment. There's our gazelle. Thank you so much, Danger Seth. Welcome in. Don't forget to grab your free sound pack of the month, subscribers. This month's sound pack is called Space Dust. It is about to go away. Whatever you're inspired to make with the free sound pack every month can be submitted in song form or idea form. You can submit it in our monthly challenge, and whatever it is, if you submit it, we will give you another free sound pack just for playing along. No strings attached. It's just for fun and growth and community. Our monthly listening party and voting happens next stream on Wednesday. And after that, we will swap out the monthly sound pack and new sounds will go up. So make sure you boogie on over to the Discord and grab your free sound pack today. You can find it in the subscriber rewards channel. You just need to link your Twitch and Discord accounts. All right, cool. Back to Paul says, I think I figured out the focus issue. Twitch set to auto instead of locked to source. Jabbar says, yeah, I do the placeholder thing a lot, blocking the idea, then go back and fix the sounds. Yeah, exactly. It is so important. If you have this idea, just get to a piece of paper and write it down, right? Or get to a recorder and get the idea out, because it's fleeting. It's so in the moment, right? All right. Before we get into the modulator presets and exactly what that unlocks for you, let's take a quick break from this. Go listen to these two tracks. We've got one from Will and we've got one from Javar. See what these guys are up to. All right, Will, you are up, sir. I love that explanation. That synth is just an acid synth pattern with a lot of guitar rig. That's awesome. I love this one. It's cool. So the little subtle tracer kick delay thingy idea, right? Just like a single echo, and maybe not on all of the kicks, but there was definitely kind of this like really organic vibe at the beginning, especially when like the full frequency range is disclosed after like 30 seconds or whatever, and it's just like all down low. I was like, oh man, this would feel really cool if there was like a kind of a heartbeat kind of a feel to it. Yeah, just really dig the lowdown vibe. Somewhere in this arrangement, those bright little clavs could be put into either a couple of delay sprays or like maybe a stutter or something like that. They could then be kind of like pitch bent or something. They're like that. They cut right through in that frequency. So I think it would feel kind of cool to let those move around a little. I love those little stutters. This super funky robot synth that you've got on there is super cool. Maybe some evoc fun or formant filter, or maybe a little bit of both. Maybe some ring mod pieces, like chop up, like resample and chop up, stitch them together. I don't know. There's some really cool things. It kind of made me want like some sort of a call and response thing happening between that and something else. 348, as I'm typing, might feel good to strip it all away. I can hear everything being stripped away in the mix. And then the hats stayed, and I was like, ooh, what if the hats went too? And then what if you actually lost all of the definition there, and it just turned into like this kind of nebulous, just timbre soup that the beat then comes back out of, and that whole rhythm is even stronger. I don't know, just ideas. At 543, where you were saying there's some stuff lacking here, I was thinking, you know, that whole section, it could actually just be a playground for movement. You've got some really fun sounds and textures. You could take little bits of those things and put them out and just play with space there and not really have to commit to anything more. I really like the Zev vibe in this one. I think transition effects and reversals, like a reverse clap, you know, like every sixth clap or something like that, and just transition effects, just like you were using a highlighter, right? Just like, ooh, that's a nice moment, that's a nice moment, that's a nice moment. No transitions happening, just cool little reversals and whoosh, that type of stuff. I think it'd be kind of fun because, right, like it's kind of like this boogie kind of music, right? And you know, people are going to be out there on the dance floor and they're going to like clap every once in a while, right, to the music. And yeah, put some, like, score that, give them that dance energy. Yeah, that's what I got. I like this one. And then Javar, you said you had one in here too. Not part of the competition, just a little ditty that arose from some free time at the end of one of my streams last week that I reworked and polished. Rumor has it, OhmLab is dead. What? What? I buried OhmLab. What? What happened? What happened to OhmLab? All right, let's find out. Oops, harvest. I'm gonna start branding this feedback here for you, homie. Gotta get to know your project name. Is my volume down for you guys? Oh. My bad. What's up, Totally Porf? Welcome in. I like this. I like this one. What's up, Iron Imp? Welcome in, Totally Porf. I like this lurky vibe that's going on here. So one thing that I think would make this even more interesting is if you were to have like maybe the third, like with this bass in here, pick one note in that little loop, pick one, elongate it, and pitch bend down just slightly as you're playing it. Bom 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 bom, or something like that. Those little moments become these like kind of bigger hooks within a little phrase that you can kind of accent in different ways. And this thing has like it has a little something to it. I would find some little kind of tiny hook like that to put in there because people will eat it up. I like this. Just a little resonance in there. It's a great instrument right here. I think some nice upward expansion on this to really make it feel like the like the pipe organ is just like, you know, like emptying upward instead of forward. I think that maybe like a little pitch bend type thing in there to give it a little bit more character, and this thing would get some placements. Oh, totally porf. Yeah, go for it. Toss it in the public feedback, and then we're going to get back to our learning. Keep thinking Eraserhead has the as the genre. It does have a horror feel to it. It could also just be suspense. Like I could hear this being used in mystery. You know, if you're just thinking like keywords, I would personally just label it as cinematic, and then from there, I would probably tag it with keywords like suspense, tension, unsettling, dramatic. You have to replace the I buried OhmLab bit though, because no one but us would get it. I hear you. Iron Imp says this kind of stuff reminds me of the black metal scene's keyboard side projects from the Mortis and Jim Kirkland of the 1990s to the present. It's also very soundtrack for games of picture. Yeah, exactly. Carpenter, Argentina. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Argento. Well, that's just the beginning of it. Like whenever you're tagging stuff, you should just open up Google and type in whatever word that you want to kind of pivot around as like your main theme, and just look up synonyms, because it's really more about giving people the opportunity to find that theme, right? And not everyone is going to reach for the same word, but they're all kind of this shared mood or feel or whatever. So it's better to work it up that way. So that way you're actually getting the qualified traffic in front of your sound. During Argentina. Thank you, DJ Empirical. You're a champion. All right, let's go do this other one, and then we're going to jump right back into our learning. Because it's this next step in the process is an awesome little hack, and it just unlocks the organic side of synthesis for people so quickly. All right, this one is from Totally Porf. It's called Warmth. Let's do this.
simply do not know. But I forgot this feeling a long, long time ago. Oh, should I carry your real while I stand here to feel your heart? 'Cause I know with your help I'll be able to make a fresh start. I just want to feel love, I just want to feel something more. And with you in my heart it starts to feel a little less sore. Give me warmth. Give me
All right, so I like this. I dig the instant game vibe right out the gate. I really like the simplicity of the ARP that kind of underpins the entire thing. I think the vocals are a little hot when they come in. There is room in that reverb to modulate it just a little bit, like just subtle things that people will go, oh, that was kind of nice. Like a little tremolo kind of effect on the volume, right? Just to kind of like get just a little wiggle in there. The other thing you might want to try is putting a small amount of compression ducking on the reverb channel. So you would put the vocals, the original vocal signal as a sidechain input on compression on the reverb channel. I'll just show you really quick. So we're going to pretend that this right here is our auxiliary channel that the reverb is loaded on. So I'll just put some reverb on here. Okay, so I've got reverb sitting on this track, and then right after it, you could put on like a little filter, or what I was thinking is just even more simple, just zero out the phase on a tremolo, so it's just like a volume modulator now. And maybe it's just like 16th or 16th triplets, and maybe it's just like, maybe like 40% of the audio coming through. And maybe it's just barely not quite fully round, so it's like a little kind of effect every once in a while or something. Or maybe it's just like this kind of rolling, gentle kind of a thing that's like in lockstep with the vibe of the song. So it's like maybe a half bar modulation or something like that. And it's just part of the overall depth of the volume of the reverb tail. You could also try playing a little bit with some like some pitch shifting or detuning or something like that in the reverb. And then it would give it a bit more of like a chorusy kind of effect. Either way, I think you have room for just a little bit of modulation in that reverberation, and it would give it a slightly more kind of dream-like quality, which I feel is like what you're really aiming toward or aiming for here. Let's see what else do I have on here? 132, I feel like some lows could be removed from the sides. Not a lot, just a little bit of the low frequencies in a couple of your sounds are touching the sides when they don't really need to be, and that would actually lift the load of the entire track quite a bit. It would focus the low end energy in the center of your track. It would also allow for better energy distribution for good sound output. Nice transition. Good feels at 205. At 220, I hear what you're going for. I feel like the level of ducking, like the depth of the ducking here is causing a bit of a drag effect instead of a push-pull effect, which I feel is like what you're kind of going for. So maybe it's just a little bit less depth on the ducking. Or conversely, you leave it all exactly the same, but you pull one element in your mix out of that ducking. Right, so it's actually going to be untouched. Maybe just kind of A/B, like compare a couple of different variations of ducking scenarios there, and yeah, that's it. That's what I got for you. Iron Imp is saying, as an aside, I think the text comments are great. A lot of feedback streams have to halt the track to talk over it, and it's anti-flow. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, Jafar, absolutely. Wow, yeah, 20 years. That is quite the flashback. Totally, Porp. I do try to follow up with what I'm saying with some kind of like, I do try to put it in context. I just try to get my ideas out quickly and not interrupt the music while it's playing. So use sidechain to modulate the reverb a bit to give it a neat effect. Yeah, so the sidechain for the vocals, oh yeah, I didn't explain my, I'm sorry. I didn't explain the rest of my thing here. Besides the tremolo, the other thing that I mentioned was the compressor. And the reason why I bring this up, and this is a really typical kind of thing in vocals, and we're just going to listen to this really quick so we can identify it so you know exactly what we're talking about. And then we're going to get back to our learning here. Right now, you can hear that the entirety of the vocals is being reverberated in equal measure. Okay, which means it's a constant and steady stream of reverb as the vocals are coming out, which is not bad from a continuity standpoint, right? But it does make it a little bit harder for the articulation of words, right? Like for everything to be coming through really clearly. So usually what we do to combat that is we set up a side chain. It is after your reverb on your reverb channel. And you're going to set up a compressor. You're going to put the vocal channel as the sidechain input. So now this compressor on the reverb channel is reacting to the signal strength of your vocals. Okay. And then what you're going to do is just dial in a threshold. So it is ducking in a similar way that you would set up bass to duck to get out of the way of the kick when it's hitting in your mix. You're going to do basically the same kind of thing. You're going to use a little less depth and a little longer knee. So instead of like a 1 knee, maybe like a 3 or a 4, a little more gentle. It's okay to leave your release on auto for this because you're not taking away the entirety of the reverb. You're not going to duck it for pumping effect. You're just going to attenuate the volume just a little bit, maybe 5 dB or something like that. And that's going to let the original audio of the vocals sit on top of the reverberation at the point of enunciation, right? It's like allowing the transient of your kick through that bass. So hope that makes sense. All right, let's get back to learning. When last we looked at this, we were just about to talk about saving modulator presets and the importance of it. So, okay, we could save this, right? We could save this envelope if we really wanted to. Like that shape, we would just save it as an LFO. So we would come over here and we would make this thing look kind of the same, right? So that's pretty close to the same shape and everything, timing. So we could just save this, right? We just click here and then save shape. But what I really want to talk about are the little things that people make a big deal out of in regards to digital synthesis versus analog synthesis, or synthesis versus real world sounds, right? And we hear it all of the time. Like, well, it's just sterile, it's just flat, it's just meh. And this other thing, well, it's moving and you can hear the imperfections and you can hear the analog grit. And they start talking about these nuances of sound that maybe you're not even able to perceive. So it's kind of lost on you as to like, why are we making such a big deal out of this? Is this person even sane? There are qualities of sound that you will be able to hear more and more of as you train your ears. One of the best ways to help you actually impart all of that stuff, even while you can't hear it all, and train you how to hear it all, is to actually start baking it into your sounds. We're going to start with a fresh preset here. Okay, so we're just going to make a pad shape really quick. I am going to extend my attack. I'm going to extend my release. So now it's a slow build up and an ease out. Okay, so right now, that's a nice sounding sawtooth. It really doesn't do much for us, right? We're going to now make this thing live. And here's how a lot of people would go about imparting some movement and stuff. We're going to increase the unison. And maybe we're going to put a filter on there so it's not completely like harsh up top, right? And maybe the filter that we choose has the options of resonance and drive, so we can give it just a little bit more character. But our problem persists. The analog purists will hear this and they'll say, well, it's a fine sound, but it doesn't move. It's not imperfect like analog. Therefore, it's not alive like analog, or something like that. So what we're going to do now is just talk about a couple of super simple things that you can do with every single sound to help get them there. Let's take and move into our basic shapes. This is a sawtooth right now, so I'm going to go back to that sawtooth. But I'm going to make a small change to our wavetable. And we can do exactly the same thing we did last time. We'll just remove the other waveforms in our wavetable, so we have just the sawtooth and a sine wave. Okay, just to keep it super simple and within reach. So I'm just going to crossfade morph this, which means we're going to go from 2 waveforms all the way up to 256 individual frames. And the reason why we have 256 individual frames is we now have this perfectly smooth crossfade experience. See this? It's lovely, right? So as we change the wavetable position knob, we are literally just kind of moving between this smooth sound and this crispy sound. All right. So let's just talk about what imperfections are in analog. Like, what are the little things that we crave in regards to movement and that kind of stuff? Well, part of it is tuning. Okay. There was something called drift that we were experiencing a lot with analog gear back in the day because we didn't have like supreme control over every last little thing, including the energy that it was receiving from the outlet. That wasn't always this steady amount. Its hold on pitch was not steady. Its hold on volume was not completely steady. There were these slight fluctuations in all sorts of different parameters. So the more we move towards subtle chaos, but within an acceptable range, the more we start to tread upon these feelings of analog. Just like when we take a beat slightly off the grid a little bit, we're moving toward this kind of humanization feel, right? We're starting to get into like this kind of grooviness. We can find a pocket for things to kind of feel a bit more natural, right? Because we're not perfect, right? So we kind of call phooey on things that are perfect. So let's just talk about how we can use a wavetable really quick. And one of these simple concepts. I'm just going to click randomly. All over the place in here. Okay, and this is going to look like a little hot mess here. And it does not have to be something that is predictable or rhythmic in any way. There can be some interesting bends here and there. And it doesn't have to have a rhyme or a reason is what I'm getting at. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to unsync this. Right now it is set to a BPM. We're going to unsync it. We're also going to keep our trigger set to off, which means wherever we leave off in this sequence that we've just created, we're going to pick up right at that point the next time we trigger a sound. Okay, so this is going to impart a little bit of randomization in a whole bunch of different areas. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the rate way down. So these are not like a wah, 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 and they're not extreme. They're not the modulation depth of whatever we're going to assign this modulator to. It's not going to be affected in big and crazy ways because we're going to apply it very minimally. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start picking the parameters that we want to put this thing on. So maybe one of our slight fluctuations that we're going to feel is a modulation of amplitude between several decibels. So maybe this LFO now is just going to ride along, or this volume knob is now going to ride along on the shape of this LFO, and it's going to be operating slowly enough that all of these different changes don't feel jagged. They're actually just going to be a fairly kind of smooth thing, okay? And it's going to be affecting such a small range of operation on whatever parameter that we put it on that it starts to feel like this organic kind of a thing, okay? And now we're going to play with this detuning. Okay, so maybe we actually want our sound to feel like it's fairly singular, and then it's just going to drift out. It's going to spiral out a little bit. And we're going to set up a different modulator for this one. And not all of these have to be as busy, and not all of them have to be extreme or jumpy or any of that. So this one right here, we're going to unsync. We're going to make sure it's not set to a BPM. We're going to bring it down in rate, and we're going to set this thing to our detune now. And we're going to increase the amount of detuning over time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put one of these on our filter. And we can also set our main amp envelope to control our filter as well. So that way our filter is not in a static position either. So what we're doing is we're taking a very simple, very static sound. We haven't put any processing on here or anything. We're going to impart all of the interest in this sound. We're going to do all of it through just movement. Okay. So we're going to bring down our cutoff just a bit. And let's set this one. Maybe like this. So this will come up pretty much all of the way. So you see what's happening here? Those quick little sprightly high energy frequencies way up high, they're getting out of the way each time we trigger a new sound, right? Because we want those high frequencies to kind of be reaching this apex point each time, right? It kind of brings this emotion and this movement and this life force to it. So now this thing is actually starting to move a bit, right? And we're not playing with any mod wheels or anything, right? We're not playing with any pitch wheels or anything, but we are going to start affecting the perception of those two things right now. We're going to take this first LFO and we're going to assign it to this cutoff over here. Okay, so now our cutoff is being controlled by envelope 1 and LFO 1. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the modulation of LFO 1 and I'm going to put this into a downward modulation. And we're just going to move down a few steps with it. So that way, at some points, when our filter is opening up all the way, it's not quite as bright as others, but it's just a slight amount. And our filter is always going to be moving, even when it's opening and closing, because it's imperfect. We've just added that imperfection. So now we're going to take our other LFO, which is currently set to the D tune, and we can kind of double down on that effect. Okay, so right now what we're doing is we're opening up the detuning, which means we're spreading the three individual voices apart from one another. They're starting in a point of unison, basically, and we're slowly pulling them apart in pitch so we can start to hear this kind of vibration and beating between them, right? So we can accentuate that by messing with our fine pitch tuning as well at the same time. And maybe we'll actually put this one into a bipolar modulation. So this one's going to go up and down, and we'll say 25 steps up and down. And this is fine tuning. So it would take 100 full incremental steps of fine tuning to move one key, one step in transposition. So we haven't put in any chorus or anything, right? We haven't put in any panning or anything or compression, and we're already starting to feel all of these tiny little things starting to like come up to the surface, right? And these are those tiny little bits of stuff that we hear about, like that we want as qualities, as characteristics, like in our analog sounds, right? So even when you can't hear all of them, even when you haven't trained your ears to catch all of them, you can start to impart it in your own work. And the other important thing, like I mentioned before, is you've got to train your ears to hear this stuff. So you've got to start doing it for you to be able to hear it, right? You're going to acclimate to these subtle changes. You will, and you will be able to identify them. You'll even be able to, if you want to be able to, get so geeky that you will be able to find loops in the imperfections. Like you'll be able to identify when certain things are set to an LFO, for instance, right? Because you're going to be able to hear these certain little benchmarks that are reached. And other people will think you're crazy when you're talking about it, because your ears have just become fine-tuned and theirs are not. So if we were to add some sort of a process here, what would it be? Maybe saturation, right? Because we're talking about something else that would be easy to very subtly manipulate, and it would be touching harmonics and overtones and stuff. But there's also the idea of grit, right? That the imperfection of noise being introduced to things. So I would actually start with that first. And there's also the fact that the saturation can then enhance whatever kind of grit you're imparting through the noise as well. So this is an order of operations thing. First thing you might notice is that the volume of the noise, as soon as we turn it on, is following the amp envelope. It's not following through the filter. And it's very steady. Now that everything else is kind of moving and breathing, you can tell that's a very sterile additive that we've just put in there. You could slip it into the filter. Problem is that if you listen very carefully, though, it's still a static sound, because as you're opening up the filter, it's disclosing this very static sound. It's not actually changing. Right? So what are some of the things that we could do to help make it a little bit more natural? Well, if there was some sort of a noise or wind involved in a sound like this in nature, it would be opening and disclosing at the same rate as the rest of it, right? Because it would be one unified thing. So one thing that we could do is set our amp envelope to modulate the pitch of this. And not a lot. If you do it a lot, it's going to sound really hokey. You can also kind of force more of the volume or the amplitude modulation by actually setting this up as a modulator. So now the color of the noise, the actual frequency, the pitch of the noise is going up and down as that filter opens and closes and the volume goes up and down. The next thing we could do is we could actually start adding intentional, more noticeable stuff, like what about some kind of vibrato, right? So let's take this triangle LFO here and let's set this as a trigger. So it's actually going to start from the same point each time. And now we're going to set this, let's set this as like a triplet 16th. And we're just going to add this as a tiny little flutter component to the very top of our amp of our oscillator. So now we've got movement, and if it was too jittery, we don't really like it, we can bring it down. Let's bring it down to like maybe an 8th triplet. I think I like it either as a 16th or maybe like a half triplet or something. And then the next thing is to figure out, okay, well, what else can I do before I actually start affecting things through like distortion or anything like that, or time-based effects? Is there anything else that I can do to kind of unify the different things that we're doing here? And sometimes the answer will be yes, and sometimes the answer will be no, as long as it's kind of the point at which you now leave this part of the process. Like, just make this a breaking point, right? If you're going to add something, maybe just one more thing, maybe just subtle, and then just move on to some processing, because what you don't want is to build in a lot of complexity early on. I'm just going to stop for one quick second and see if there are questions here. Iron Imp says, fun experiment, hit a really lush diffuse reverb with a burst of noise and then aggressively auto-tune that audio. Listen to the algorithm try and freak out trying to pitch track decorrelated mess. Whips around wildly. Oh, yeah. Yeah. one thing people don't mention too much is the contour of an analog envelope without treatment to tighten it up tends to shark fin toward, then decay more exponentially in RC circuits. As an example of slowing movement nonlinearities. Yeah, so exactly. So just moving away from these kind of static positions, right? A lot of envelopes, like amp envelopes, might have a slight curve to them by default, but then the rest of your modulator sources, you're kind of like left to design as you see fit, right? But the same kind of rules apply, right? Like adding just a tiny little bit of contour, a little bit of shaping, right? It's like adding just a little bit of shadowing, or like surface texture or tension with graphics, right? It just changes everything because it affects the perception of it so profoundly, so immediately. Math rock band name, the Crossfade Experience. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I liked it. Yeah, crossfade traffic instead of crosstown traffic. Oh, thank you, Will. Take care. You're probably already gone. Oh yeah, Will, you should. We're playing Space Dust this month. All right, Iron Imp is saying, tuning, tracking, drift, saturation, gain staging, noise floors, instant feedback, nonlinearities introduced by using earth minerals in a circuit, etc., micro slews and lags. That said, it's there, but not musically important unless you want to sound analog, etc. Thank you, Heidi. Once you're familiar with analog behavior, you can solicit that in a lot of virtual synths, 95% convincingly. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what this lesson is about. It's not just about helping your sounds get there, but helping you get there as someone that's never had an opportunity to like gain insight into how to identify each one of these individual processes, right? So you can start to unpack all of it in your own efforts and apply it accordingly. This is how you do it. This is how you do it. DJ named Terry, thank you so much for being here, and thank you. I still need to upgrade. I've not had much time to myself. I've been patching up though. Was making an industrial sounding patch with Volt and some noise ring mod feedback stuff, and I thought, you know, if someone played this for me, I'd reckon it's analog at a glance. Yeah, Iron Imp, exactly. There are, like, close your eyes, and if it sounds great, then move on. Right? If it's got a really interesting timbre and texture and delivery, then a lot of people would instantly gravitate toward believing that it's analog more than digital. It's so weird how we do that, but yeah. All right, I'm saying, yeah, OhmLab, I was messing with a really quiet negative 40 dB sine, noise ring mod back in with the sine, then saturating together through a really overdriven SCM filter model and mix it a tiny bit of the noise back in post facto. Sounded lovely. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then you start auditioning different types of noise. Yeah. Yeah, and textures. You know, the noise pack, all of those noise profiles in that pack, I actually synthesized by hand. So they translate incredibly well in sound design. They've just been kind of stripped of a lot of the more problematic things painstakingly. So for those of you with that sound pack specifically, you can actually get really tight control over what kind of texture or noise you're baking in. A lot of creative ways in which you can use that stuff. All right, so how do we then start to put on display these little things that we've built? Well, again, this can come back to an order of operations thing. Let's say we actually wanted to put a small amount of delay in here. So we're going to do that really quick. Set this a little off. Okay, so I just put this into ping pong, 1/4, 1/16. I dialed up the timing of the 16th note. I dialed down the timing of the quarter note. So this is going to hit just before a real quarter note time, and this is going to hit just after a real 16th note. And it's sending those tails out to the sides. And then I've restrained in this bandwidth here the frequencies that are allowed out. So therefore the low frequencies are no longer colliding with the other frequencies and muddying things up. So when they reach the sides, it's just those higher frequencies and those mid frequencies, and they dissipate quickly. And then we're going to add our reverb, or actually our compressor first. And just knowing which tool to use, like this is maybe not the right sound for a multiband. We're just wanting to squish just a little bit of those textures into that delay a little bit more. Then we're just going to reverse the expected order of operations for a couple of things here. We are going to put some reverb next, which is, I mean, that makes sense. We're just going to cut out some of those lows and highs. And we really don't need a whole lot of spin depth here. And we might want to bring our spin rate down a bit. So the emphasis is really just on the sound still. There's subtle variations. And it's now at this point that we might add saturation instead of earlier. And we might not add as much as we might think we need when adding it earlier. The whole reason of adding it at this point is to kind of give the reverberation and the delay and the reverberation that's kind of built up around the sound now. We're going to agitate the entirety of that. Let's put that up here in front of the delay and see what it sounds like. I'm going to move it back after the reverb, and then I'm going to put the compressor after it too. So now the delay and the reverb are being compressed, and that distortion is in there as well. And now I can hear a difference in each of those things because I've been doing this a little while. And you may not be able to. But if you do this at this point of the process, take like 2 minutes to play through your sound with your processing being served up in a different order of operations a few times over, you will quickly start to make correlations from one sound to the next, the cause and effect of exactly what is happening when I'm applying the compressor after my reverb. Why does the sound so much bigger? Why is that? And why is it that when I put the distortion after the reverb, it gives it this certain kind of energy, and why when I put it before, it gives it kind of this smoothness almost? Why do those things occur? And the more you start to play with these things, the more you're going to be able to put your words to it. And it's important that they are your words, because this is the beginning of the glue process. Remember the first couple sessions when we started dipping into this term that we're going through right now, we talked about the importance of words and language and hijacking our earliest neural pathways, right? Color, sense of touch, so texture, feels, mood, right? Happy, sad, light, dark, rough, smooth. red, blue, green. We're trying to correlate stuff to those earliest words, those earliest neural pathways, because they're the most trusted. And as soon as we can fully engage with those, mission accomplished. We have embedded a lot of this understanding and like intimacy with our sounds with those, with that deep rooted trust level of neural pathways. Like, you will trust it just as much as you do walking. You'll trust it just as much as you trust your knowledge of the grass outside being green, or the sky being blue, or your name being Bob, or whatever your name is. And when you can do that, then you can move around with confidence. And that's what will keep all of this moving forward. But to get there, you need to kind of go through this process of auditioning these things in different orders and starting to correlate these ideas, these thoughts, and these words to one another, and allow yourself to kind of start to cement these things in a way that really makes sense to you. Understanding what's happening technically is one thing, but how you're ingesting all of that and feeling about all of that and communicating with yourself about it, that's something entirely different. That's like freaking rock and roll right there. So that's the juice. Iron Imp says, interestingly, was reading a Finnish research paper on using velvet noise as an IR kernel for convolution for reverbs. Results demonstrated were promising. Velvet noise is mostly zeros, but with the occasional 1 or neg1 at a rate of density. Kind of like dithering. Looks a bit like bipolar vinyl crackle. Yeah, it's kind of like a way to make randomized density of pre-delay hard reflections in a cluster before it goes on to get processed further. Oh, nice. This just went philosophical. We do that a lot, DJ named Terry. But we, this is part, this is how the curriculum is built. This is an entirely different way of learning all of this stuff. It really, really is. And it works. It works so flippin' well. And it's because you're engaging with parts of your brain and your psyche that have been validated and have gotten the stamp of approval from those around you for years and years and years and years and years. Meanwhile, when you were singing out of tune that one day when you were 2, or when you were making that funny noise that one day when you were 4, and someone said, shut up, or stop it, or you're making too much noise, or that's not how it goes, or that's not right. Right? You trust the things that have been validated and confirmed, and you stop trusting, you stop believing in the things that you've been shamed over, basically, or told that was wrong. So we're just kind of constantly moving in the direction of positive and like reinforcement and understanding. And when you communicate in those terms with yourself about these things that you're discovering in real time, it reinforces it all. And it does it in a way and at a rate that you can't do otherwise. So that's pretty cool. Seriously considered starting the Church of Music, right? Right? My name, Bop She Bop. We talking like Cyndi Lauper here? The sky is purple. Yeah, when you really stop and think about it, we have no actual idea if what I see as purple is what you see as purple. We just agree when we both see the thing that we've always seen and identified as purple. That does not mean we are actually seeing the same thing. We have all been conditioned and trained to call it that. We could all be seeing a different hue, and in fact, we might be. We really don't know, but the trust is there. So therefore it functions. And there's like a really big lesson to like take away in all of that, I think. The Church of the Divine Fundamental Harmonic, right? Just the sine wave as represented as a perfect circle. Do we all actually see Purple Prose 44 the same? No. Probably not. Probably not. We do have some idea based on the research done on the cerebral cortex, mimetic understanding mixed with the physiological phenomena. This is trust. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of complexity in why I don't want to take my freshly washed wet hand over towards that hot pan on the other side of the kitchen. Right? If I'm like reaching into a hot pot and it's full of really hot oil and my hand is dripping water while I'm like putting that stuff in, I'm in for a world of hurt, right? The funny thing about trust is that you do not need technical proof. Right now, like faith, right? So basically faith, you have faith in what you are correlating. You have faith in what you're believing, that you're learning, right? You have faith in how you're communicating it. You have trust in those things. Even though we can't know for certain all of the time, all of the exact technical reasons why something is happening. Ooh, now that's an interesting one right there. Liquid is saying, Sam Harris does an amazing podcast episode regarding AI with the guy who co-founded Palm Pilot, who's now leading World Brain AI researcher. Basically, color, sound, visual stimuli are all processed through the same filter in the cortex, right? Yeah. Well, they're all basically the same things. We're just perceiving them through different modes, through different tools. Yes, exactly, Paul. Faith versus science. You have faith that the science of water-oil interactions still apply to you. Exactly. Cool. It's not exactly a go-to like sculpting white or pink noise, but some very handy specific uses. Oh, talked about the velvet sound. Yeah. Yeah, the neurobiology of interpreting sensory input is a whole separate discussion. And the spectrum in which we all put things. I'm not a believer that things get to put, that things are always put into these finite positions. I tend to think of things as existing in these spectrums, if you will. Sometimes there are multidimensional spectrums, which just means that, other things are interacting or dependent upon or working in tandem with. Yeah, playing with it all is how you get there. Your homework this week, and I'll get this stuff posted to the Discord. I'm sorry I forgot to paste that stuff over last week. I'll get that up. So this week, oh, I didn't post any shared synth presets. But you guys do have lots of samples and some presets from me. And we all have shared presets by way of the same synths. Anyway, what you really want to do for your homework this time is spend time with your presets and your samples. If you spend almost all of your time with just gaining comfort in saving super basic presets for an entire week, you're doing yourself a great service. You really are. It's going to open things up. It might seem really basic and elementary at first, but it really does. It really does start to help. And then, like I said earlier at the start of the stream, spend some time reading, right? Hearing, I mean, even if it's an audiobook that you're listening to, something from a written source that is sharing someone's thoughts about sound, making music, synthesis, sampling techniques, recording techniques. It's not about what they're saying about the technicalities of those things. It's more about how they're communicating. So that's why I hope that whatever you gravitate towards is from some sort of a written source, because we choose and we kind of curate our words when we're dealing in writing, right? We can go back, we can delete, we can erase, we can rewrite, we can make edits, right? So this is a fairly carefully crafted thing, but it's also still pretty personal too, right? Because everyone has a different way of communicating. And that's really what you want the exposure to. While your mind is in this bit more of a plastic space, listen to people's thoughts and how they talk about these things, right? And again, not all of us are very fluid in communication verbally, but in written word, we can take our time and kind of craft these things. So give yourself a chance to do that. And then spend some time playing. Just make some stuff. Even if they're all super basic sounds and you're not comfortable with it, just do it. Just do it. And make more than you would have a week ago. So if it takes you 20 minutes to make a sound and you're willing to dedicate several hours this week to it, try to get 20. Maybe last week you only got 10 or something, and just see how many more you can get through. So really, really easy homework this week. Read and play. Those are your big ones. Man, there's a hawk having a lot of fun, just absolutely terrorizing these two birds out here today. It's very distracting. He's chasing them all over the place. All right. Any last questions before we wrap up all of our lesson stuff for the day? Yeah, by the way, yeah, Johnny Fever passed away yesterday. Ah. A dense 600 pages. Yeah, I bet it's a dense 600 pages. Huh. That is interesting. The goal was to make an algorithm to understand the difference between a song and a cover of a song. Wow. Yeah, Liquid, absolutely. Yeah, once you're able to identify very specific elements, yeah. Oh, wow. The analysis is actually encoded off of a spiral of ladder filters. Wow. Wow. Which approximately model cochlea. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. We are living in a very fascinating time. We really, really are. Iron Imp, you are welcome. Jafar, you are welcome. It's stating that time can be measured in the micro and the macro, but not so accurately with the median. We do have lots of smart people in our community, and I appreciate every single darn one of you. When we meet next, it will be Wednesday, and it will be our community listening party and voting day. So definitely be sure to show up. If you are participating, make sure that you get your track posted to the monthly, where is my Discord? To the monthly challenge submissions channel before we start voting, voting after listening to everyone. So you will have until about noon Pacific on Wednesday to get your track submitted. We will hopefully have Whiskey on that day. And he does hold the tie-breaking vote as last month's champion. and it will be good to get to know him if we can have him on the show. And yeah, if you have not grabbed the sound pack yet, go and do so, because it will be taken down after we vote on Wednesday, and a new sound pack will be going up. And that's it. And now I'm going to see who's up. See who's doing what on Twitch today. Thank you for all the subs and the follows today, you guys. Appreciate you all. It looks like we're going to go see Andremia. Yay! Best raid sequence on Twitch. I think both he and Decipher have a really fun and engaging one. I think Andremia is ace. All right, y'all. I will see you on Wednesday. Have a great couple of days. Stay inspired and make awesome stuff. Peace out.
What happened? What's going on? It's... No. If it was a raid, the raid alarm would go off. I don't hear it. Oh no, there it is. We are under attack. Deploy countermeasures. Shields up. Just kidding, welcome in Raiders. Hi, I'm N, nice to meet you. On this channel, we take random sounds